Hello and welcome to the 18th episode of the This Week in Hollywood podcast. We are just churning through these things. I'm your host, of course, Adam Robson, always accompanied by my great co-host, Reese Wigman.
Feels great to be here, spinning week in, week out, baby.
Exactly. We are machining through these things, absolutely running through them. Love doing them. We have a shorter episode today, but definitely got some good stuff to talk about. We'll obviously be talking about the Grand Budapest Hotel, my recommendation from last week. Doing my last recommendation on this episode, which we will cover next week, and then we are going to the wheel spin for a couple weeks before a Halloween extravaganza that we are preparing for. But obviously, starting off, we are going with upcoming films. For me, there definitely is one. I'll be seeing Equalizer 3 on Friday, the September 1st. Seeing all of those movies, excited to see this one. Hoping it's pretty good. It's supposed to be the end of the trilogy, so hopefully they can end it well. Reese, do you have any movies this week?
I still am playing catch up right now, so I'm still going to do, this week finally I'm going to do Last Voyage of Demeter and Gran Turismo. And then anything else I've kind of missed out on. I've kind of been out of the game for a minute, but hoping to catch back up this week.
Good, yeah, hopefully. I just saw for cinema, the National Cinema Day on Sunday, the 27th, went to see Sound of Freedom, which I thought was pretty good. Definitely tough to watch. Very touchy subject. It's about, obviously, child trafficking, which is very difficult to watch. Pretty well made. Was never bored, but definitely could tell it was a lower budget film. Not an incredibly big after school special, but definitely not a huge movie. And then I also saw Gran Turismo again. Absolutely loved it. Definitely a great film. Can't wait to hear what you think about it. The audience at the end absolutely erupted in cheers, which I was not expecting. So that was fun to see. Have you seen anything this week?
The only thing I've seen this week, and I cannot believe I forgot this movie came out. This movie came out a couple weeks ago, and I've been so aware of its production for the last 2 years, and I totally just flaked when it came out. But I watched Zoe 102 on Paramount Plus, the Zoe 101 sequel movie, I guess, legacy, I don't know, whatever you call it, just reunion movie.
Yeah.
Watched that, big fan of Zoe 101 growing up. So took a night, watched Zoe 102, and it is bad.
Is it really?
Well, yeah, and it's not even bad in a way that you'd expect. It's just really curious.
Okay.
The plot decisions is just very strange. The B plot, Zoe is working as a producer or an upcoming producer, I guess, trying to on a reality dating show. And there's so much time spent doing that, and it's why are we not with the characters that we're here for? I don't care about this fake reality dating show. Although some of the scenes, when they're showing the reality dating show, are that's the best stuff. The satirical reality dating show is the most well done thing, but everything else kind of sucks. Aaron Sanders as Quinn Penske does a very good job. Everyone else is very bad acting. And then obviously Victoria Justice isn't there, and the actress who played Nicole in the first show is not there also. So you're really deep into the bag. Jack Salvatore Jr., who plays Mark, is in it for a long time, and he's in nothing else ever. He's only ever been in Zoe 101 and Donnie Darko randomly.
Makes
but
sense.
Yeah, so no, it's not incredible. No.
Not worth your time. I saw a preview for it once. Obviously it didn't have incredible marketing, but still just seeing it once and being yeah, I watched that. I had no interest in seeing the movie, but now definitely out of it for me.
Yeah, it's no Spring Breakers.
Okay.
Or isn't that what was that thing called? What was that Zoe 101 special called when they did the spring break thing? It's not Spring Breakers. It's Spring Breakup. That's what it
there
is.
There you go.
That is. Spend your time watching that. That's much better.
Interesting. Well, without further ado, we are going to get into our review here of the Grand Budapest Hotel. This was my recommendation. Like I said, I would be in deep trouble if I did not pick at least one Wes Anderson movie. This is my favorite. Watched it again. Absolutely love this movie. Definitely a top 10 movie for me, maybe even a top 5. Reese has never seen it, and he also has only seen a couple other Wes Anderson movies, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
I think he's seen Rushmore, French Dispatch, Asteroid City, and I think one more.
And Bottle Rocket, yeah.
Bottle Rocket. Okay, I'm interested to see where this ranks at the end in your Wes Anderson movies. But just what were your thoughts going into this?
Well, I was excited to see it. This is the one that everyone talks about all the time. Whenever I say, "Oh, I've only seen these, Wes Anderson films," and never totally connected to French Dispatch, like Asteroid City a little bit more, like this early stuff. Everyone's always like, "Well, just wait till you see Grand Budapest. That's kind of like the peak of everything. That's where everything, his style really comes together with his storytelling, and like this is the one, to really circle." And
Yep.
so, a lot of hype going into this one.
And we are definitely going to get into spoilers very heavily, I would assume. So I'm going to put the on-screen spoiler warning now. You can skip ahead to the time code in order to avoid them. Would definitely recommend this movie if you have not seen it. So don't want to spoil anything for you there. But without further ado, what was your thought after watching the movie? What did you think? General overview.
Generally, like it's good. Like I just don't, I think I just don't totally jive with Wes's whole thing as much as other people do. I appreciate it. I get it. I see it. It's cool. Like it's just I think just like very much on the opposite side of the cinema spectrum for where I really dig into stuff. But it was good. Like I did not dislike watching it. It just
Okay.
like did not connect to it in the way that everyone else does for sure.
I can understand that. I've seen this movie with my mom and my dad. They definitely did not enjoy it as much as I did, which I can understand because they're not big like cinema people. But like, just the art style. Like, what didn't work for you as much? The art style, the characters, the music.
Yeah, it's like I appreciate everything. I just feel like I just this is not my thing as much as other people's things. I suppose like everyone else just seems like like everything is just like really clicking for them, and for me, like I'm not disliking anything. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I like this. I like that, but it just isn't. I'm just not in it. I'm just not like sinking my claws into it like it seems like everybody else is. I'm just kind of like passively enjoying it more than I think everyone else is actively engaging with it.
Okay, I can see that. I mean, I just absolutely love the art direction in this. Like
It's incredible.
all the scenes that aren't like with actors in them, those establishing shots, they're almost like the matte paintings of the old
Yes.
80s movies, and it looks so just like visually interesting, and all the visual
Yeah.
gags that they do throughout the movie and characters that I want to get into as well. So it's the beginning though. I want to know if you got the idea of it's being very confusing, because that's one of the problems I've heard is the beginning of this movie where you originally are watching the girl come in and she looks
Yeah.
statue of the author, and then you go back in time to that author when he was old, and then you go back in time to that author when he was young, and then you go back in time to when Zero was a lobby boy.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Because what is it? It's like it starts out
Four
with the
time jumps.
girl. Yeah, it's the girl, and she's reading a book about a guy who like heard a story one time about the lobby boy, and then it's like layer and layer and layer. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that kind of thing. That was really I love the intro. But yeah, even like the art design, it's like on the statue is just so cool.
Yes. And then immediately when you jump back in time, that shot of the mountain with the stag on top and the elevator that goes down, and
Mm-hmm.
then the vehicular transmobile or whatever it's called that takes you up to the Grand Budapest is great. But then we get what I would say is my only criticism of this movie is I don't like the opening as much as the rest of the movie.
Really?
So when you're watching all that play out, I'm always just like, okay, let's get going. I want to see Monsieur Gusteau. I want to see, everyone else. I want to see Dimitri. I want to see Serge. I want to see Joplin. So I'm waiting to get to that. And it makes, for me, the beginning, like 15 minutes really drag.
Interesting, because I like the intro quite a bit, and a lot of I was just like reading some reviews and thoughts online, and it seemed like if there was any criticisms from people, it was people saying like the intro was great, and then it started dragging from there. So it's interesting
Really?
that you have a the opposite response to that. Yeah,
Oh,
of course.
interesting.
The overwhelming response is just that the whole thing is incredible, right? Like whenever you're
Yes.
digging for the like criticism, it seems like that's usually flopped. So
Yes. I mean, I can see that, but I don't understand how you could think the middle drags, because first of all, and this could just be me, I've seen this at least 5 times, but once you get into that Mr. Gustav and all of that with them, it seems like the pace just takes off.
But yeah, I seem like every scene lasted about 8 seconds. So
Yes, it just starts running through, and again, all these set pieces when they're coming in, especially the whip pans in this and the stationary cameras that are moving in the background, especially when they're on the train, are great. But I also wanted to know your thoughts on a lot of the, I'm not sure what to call it, but it's when they're moving from scene to scene, like on a motorcycle or on the sled or in the car, and it's like they're transposed onto a bad green screen almost, and it puts this weird like visual effect on it.
yeah, like almost like you're watching like a stage play or something.
Yes, very
Um,
much, which goes
yeah,
along a lot with
I like
Asteroid
that stuff a
City.
lot. I like that a lot. Yeah, that happened in Asteroid City. You know, like the Barbie movie did the same kind of thing whenever they were, you know, that was a little bit more obvious, I guess, more intentional.
Yeah.
But no, I love all that kind of stuff. Like that's what I should really say here. Like I totally appreciate all of the visual choices here. Like I cannot imagine what the storyboard looks like. I can't imagine like
Yes.
having the audacity to like start drawing this storyboard and like seeing this project through. And you can say with any of Wes's stuff, it's just incredible. It's just yeah, as like as impressive as it is, I totally dig it. It's just like my aesthetic that I'm drawn to more in film is like zero budget,
Okay.
like shaky cam, like girl running across some train tracks and like yelling at some guy in a dump. You know, I'm like,
Okay.
that's what gets me going, and that like that's just like on the opposite spectrum as this, and so like I'm totally appreciating everything that's going on here. It just like is not the thing that I'm immediately drawn to, but does not mean that I don't like. It was not enamored by. I was like still like in awe of how all this was put together.
Yeah, I can agree then, because it's like this movie, obviously it doesn't have like a huge budget. It definitely had a budget, but like
Sure.
every shot is so meticulously planned out of like where
Oh
people
my
are going to
god.
stand and the framing to get the people exactly where you want that frame to be. That I can see how if you're not a fan of that, they could get old or you could grow tired of it very easily.
Yeah, like the whole movie is like in those videos where like someone like knocks down like a set of dominoes and then it hits the marble that goes down the slide and then knocks
Yes.
over the entire movie is just that like everything just plays so carefully in a row and then you just start this little thing of momentum and the whole thing goes off and if there's anything out of place the rest of it wouldn't work. Like it's incredible the attention to detail and to precision in which camera movements
Yes.
blocking placement have to be. There's such a little small margin of error here for any of these scenes to work and then the whole thing wouldn't work. Like it's really incredible the precision of Wes's films.
Yes. And especially with balancing all these famous people that play even small bit roles. Like Harvey Keitel's in this for a little bit. Bill Murray's barely in this.
Mm-hmm.
Ed Norton has a decent amount in it. But then just like people that show up at the very end, like Owen Wilson. And
Yeah.
I feel it's very effective, at least for me, because like, and I guess this also attributes to me seeing this so many times, but like I know the characters by name, even though there's so many famous people in them. And that's kind of the draw for these Wes Anderson movies, especially like now at Asteroid City, just the cast that this is able to bring in.
Yeah. And I did see someone kind of critique the cast and say that the cast was a little bit less of a total than the sum of its parts, which I thought was interesting. And I thought there are some great performances here, but like I was like I wanted more Bill Murray,
Yeah.
and Bill Murray was probably my favorite character in the whole thing. I thought he really brought it down.
Yeah, I like Bill Murray in this, but I mean, I think this is my favorite Adrian Brody performance. I love him as Dimitri, just like this smug asshole.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
Willem Dafoe as
He
Joplin is also really fun. I love his theme
That's
where
such
it's
a
like that
weird
banjo.
role for him. Like that is such a
Yes.
weird role for Willem Dafoe. Like to
Huge
have Willem
underbite.
Dafoe, yes, that and just like to have him like not talk at all. Like Willem Dafoe's, I feel like acting wise, like so much of his performances are like drawn from his like pattern of speech and the way he's delivering lines, and like his character like does not talk a whole lot at all.
Yeah. It's like this hyper stylization because he doesn't need to talk. The look and the design of him is just,
Sure, yeah,
it speaks for himself almost. I want to get into this especially, but like him throwing the cat out the window, or when he takes Kovac's fingers completely off. It's just like
That's good.
so funny. And I wanted to know what you thought about the comedy, because I know a lot of people, I don't know if I would say they don't like Wes Anderson's comedy, but it definitely has like a specific audience. And I wanted
Yes,
to know
no,
what
I
you thought.
like that. Like the quirky, like yes, his little like quirky, almost kind of like Buster Keaton-y,
Yes.
like
The,
comedy style. Yes, I'm definitely a fan of that.
I love the when it goes to the Society of the Crossed Keys and they're all just doing takeover, and it's like increasingly
Yes, that was like
dumber
probably
things
my
are taking
favorite part of the
over.
movie. Yes, that
Or at
was
the
probably my
end,
favorite part.
Dimitri comes in and he's like, "I'm gonna blast your candy ass once and for all right now," and then just starts
Yes,
shooting in a
and Ash
hotel, and
starts shooting him. Yes, it's so
yes, and
good.
every guard comes out to shoot him. But it just keeps moving, and that's I love his art style. I love all of it. I will always be there for a Wes Anderson movie. Did this change your view on Wes Anderson movies at all, or is it pretty similar to what it was before?
I
Considering,
yeah.
and I definitely want to get into this. I guess we
Mm-hmm.
can start getting into this now. Where would this rank on your list of Wes Anderson movies you've seen?
That's tough. I haven't really thought about this because I haven't seen all that many. I would
Yeah.
say I definitely like this more than French Dispatch. I probably I would probably be inclined to watch Asteroid City again before I would watch Grand Budapest again.
Okay. That's
Um,
interesting.
just personal preference. I feel, and I kind of had a similar feeling coming out of Asteroid City as I did finishing watching this. But then like Asteroid City has really stuck with me a lot more than I thought it would coming out of it. Like I've just thought about it a lot more than any other movie that I kind of have seen this year. Whenever I kind of came out of it not loving it, and so I
Yeah.
wonder if this will grow on me the more I sit with it. But I would say it's right in line with Asteroid City. Like honestly, Bottle Rocket is still like my favorite of his.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is still my favorite, obviously. I still
Sure.
haven't seen all of them. The main one that I still want to see that I am thinking may give it a run for his money is the Darjeeling Limited. I've heard that
Mm.
one's pretty
Mm-hmm.
good, but I love the characters in this too much to not say that this is my favorite.
Sure.
And I really would implore people to go see at least one Wes Anderson movie, because I think
Of course.
definitely recently, especially because of this movie, he's become a more household name, and
Oh,
I
for sure.
definitely think his films deserve to be seen. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think everybody should give a movie of his at least one shot.
Oh, totally. I mean, he's probably the most like recognizable or like the most like true auteur of the current like film age. Like just as far as like filmmakers trying to reinvent the style and like putting forth like real artistic vision into their
Yeah,
films. Like it's just you can recognize a Wes Anderson film over anybody else's style probably in just filmmaking today.
yeah. I mean, there are countless Instagram accounts that are like accidental Wes Anderson shots, and it's like just random pictures you take, but it looks like it's right out of a Wes Anderson movie, which I always enjoy looking at. The last thing I wanted to touch on, because we kind of been talking about a lot more of the background stuff. What did you think of the story in this? Because I can understand people not loving this story. I think it's very straightforward, but definitely has a fun twist or turn
Mm-hmm.
in it. Another thing that I've heard people complain about, and I 100% agree, is at the end, it kind of just, you get that big scene in the hotel, and then it kind of just falls off into the narration ending. But what did you
Sure.
think about that?
Yeah, again, like I was like nothing was like I was totally entertained. Like, I was entertained throughout the whole thing, but it wasn't anything groundbreaking to me. There wasn't any one part of it where I was like plot wise, this is super engaging, super incredible. Like I said, it's more scene by scene based to me. I guess is how I think about it. Like loved the sequence with the cross keys. Like
Yes.
that alone was like
I
worth
think
watching the whole movie for.
that
I liked the prison.
sequence
I liked the
has my
prison
favorite.
stuff. Yes, that was great. I love the prison stuff. Um, whenever he's going through and like offering mush to all of the prisoners, like
Yes.
that, like just burns. So it's like more. I guess for me, at least, the Wes Anderson stuff, I'm like, there's just certain bits, certain gags, certain little quirks in each movie that I'm like, oh, that is great. Like I love that even like by itself more than I love like the plot of the whole thing. And
Yeah.
maybe that's why I liked Asteroid City too, because you could be like, what the hell is the plot of that movie? If there is, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And
I
so it
understand
just
that.
kind of seems like even more of a sequence of quirks and little gimmicks and gags lined up next to each other.
Yeah.
And some of them kind of rock. Yeah.
I can definitely agree. Gosh, well, I don't really know what else to say about this movie. Did you at least like it?
Yes, yeah, no, of
Okay.
course, I definitely liked it. It's like one of those hard things too. Whenever I've heard so much about it for so long,
Yes.
it's been built up so much, and I've seen, you know, I'm just around film stuff all the time, so I've seen however many pictures of everything, clips of everything. So I was like already like fairly familiar with it without having seen it, which I think gives it a disadvantage, like going into watching it for the first time. If you've seen like bits and pieces of a movie here and there, and then you sit down and watch it, like you're already desensitized to it a little bit. You've
Yes.
already kind of like you've already dipped your toe in the water and switched it around a couple times and sat by the pool, fell asleep with your arm in the water, and then you get in. Like, you know what I mean? You didn't just get to like dive straight in. So, but yeah, of course, I thought it was I thought I had a good time with it. It's just, I think it was at a big disadvantage for me waiting this long to see it.
Yeah, see, I'm almost the opposite because I had heard about it a lot, but I hadn't seen the clips of it. And then when I really started getting the movies, I was like, and then I really started getting into Wes Anderson. I'm like, okay, I got to see some of these movies. I started, checking them off the list, and then I got to this one and was excited to see it. And then actually seeing it, I think this is one of the few times where like my expectations were blown away because I
Nice.
liked it so much,
That's
not
awesome.
having seen a lot. So I'll always love that. But obviously, coming to an end here, what would you give this movie out of 10?
Oh, and it's like so hard to do.
Yes, it always is. I'm well aware.
It always is, and like especially like in this case, like what is it for me?
Yes, it's
Mm,
entirely based on you.
what is it for me? I think I'll give it a 6.5, which is
Six
like
and a half.
pitchforks and like fire to my house. But that's gonna be my probably my hottest take I've had on the pod so far.
Jeez. Yeah, I mean, I'm coming straight out with a 9 out of 10 on this one. I love this movie.
I
Um,
figure you'll hire. I mean, yeah, all my friends on Letterboxd, like everybody across the board, like 5 out of 5s.
yeah.
So
Well,
well aware I'm in the minority here, but
that's all right.
someone's got to fight the fight.
Yes, of course. And obviously, I will be there for the next Wes Anderson movie.
Oh, of
I
course.
think there's another one coming out this year or maybe next year. I
Is there?
forgot, but I thought I saw something was coming out this year, and I saw a comment like, "Oh my God, we're gonna get 2 Wes Anderson movies in the same year." So I'm not too sure. I am gonna have to check into that though.
Okay,
And
check into
then
that.
we normally would be going into our movie trailer section. We did not have any movie trailers this week, unfortunately. So
Not a
hopefully
one.
next week we will have some more, and I'll
I do
beef
have a
up that
note
section.
though.
Okay.
I saw I forgot where, but I saw like one quick blurb that Slaughterhouse is very good.
Really?
Yeah, I forget where I saw it, but it was but someone fairly reliable or one of my friends or something. Somebody saw it and was like, "This is good." So
Okay. I'll have to take their word for it, but if you see it, let me know.
yes.
I will trust your judgment. Obviously, next week we'll try and get some more in there. We still do have a couple general movie news to go over.
Yep.
First one being, have you seen the news about Dune Part Two's IMAX run? Now, I know you hate Dune Part 1, but
Real
this
haters
was some
episode
news.
today. I did not see the news about Dune Part 2.
So I could be wrong, and I don't have the article pulled up in front of me, so this is a very big paraphrase. Do not mark every single word I say here. But
Okay.
Dune is Part 2 is, I think, releasing November 3rd, and The Marvels, which is a Marvel movie, is releasing very close to it, if not on the same week. So let me see when that actually comes out. So The Marvels is coming out November 10th, so a week later. Dune Part 2 has already secured a 6-week IMAX run, and The Marvels, a Marvel movie, will not get any IMAX showings.
Oh, hang on. There might be new news as of like 2 hours ago.
Okay. Brace.
I'm
This could be
seeing
breaking
I'm,
news.
I'm seeing breaking news. Dune 2 got pushed back to March 15th,
You're kidding.
2024. That's what I'm
Please tell
seeing.
me that's not true.
If you want to go confirm in real time, but
Oh my God, it is.
I'm seeing that it got pushed big time.
You're kidding. It got pushed back like 2 hours ago. You're kidding. Oh my God, it is. That's so unfortunate. I was so
It's a
looking
good thing
forward
we
to that.
record. If we recorded it when we were originally going to record today, we wouldn't have had the news.
That's true. We have to keep the people up to date.
No one else would
Only
have
fair.
found out. Oh my god!
Well, scrap that then. That is not happening anymore. I was gonna say, I mean, even we could
Is
still
this the
brief.
reason? Is this the reason why? Oh no,
I'm
it says due to Hollywood strikes, but why?
Yeah,
Oh, because they can't promote it, I guess.
yeah. I think that's
Yeah,
why.
because
Um,
none of the actors could promote it. Well, that's oh no, we can't watch
I
Dune
was
for another few months.
so ready to like talk about how is this the. I know we've talked about it a lot, so I don't want to dwell on it too much. But is like that a news that Dune was gonna run the IMAX for a long time was like almost the first nail in the coffin that the superhero movies are done, that you can't even
Gotcha.
clear an IMAX theater for a Marvel movie anymore. I thought that was like just
Well, I
mind boggling.
wish. Yeah, that would have been very interesting. This is way now. Okay, now I am disappointed that it's not coming out because that would have been very interesting to watch play out there.
Yeah, I
Mm.
know. It's also would have been interesting because I know the
Weird
Marvels.
release time, March too. I mean, I guess I know they're just trying to get on the other side of the whenever the strike ends. But March
Yeah,
is a weird time to put a movie out. Not usually a good one.
and I also don't want to be quoted on this because I'm looking it up right now, so I might be
Right.
wrong.
Sure.
But I think did it? Yeah, the last Dune made a decent Oscar run. So pushing it back, you're
It
going to be
did.
going into next year's Oscars, and obviously, if the movie's good, it will still get its praise and its nominations. But at the same time, I feel like movies that release earlier in the Oscar run don't get as much
No.
nominations because you almost forget about them.
Correct.
So, I mean, it won six. Dune Part One won six Oscars. So, it kind of a bold move, I guess. Depending, no, it doesn't even depend because it's only in like January that you can be considered for the next year, right?
Yeah. I believe so.
So
That sounds
they're
right.
wow, that's actually kind of shocking. That's interesting. I'm not sure what to say with that. Well, thank you for correcting me. I know that you probably still are not too interested in Dune Part Two. I saw a trailer for it before Gran Turismo, which I finally got to see in IMAX, and I mean, it looks great. I'm sure we'll cover it through
Sure.
Reese's anger when it comes out, but
Well, no. Well, I think the big news here is like, I mean, what else is going to get pushed now? If they push that, because that
yeah,
was coming out when you said the first week in November, like if
yep,
that's getting pushed, and that's a big release, like you said, a big release that had IMAX like ready to go. So I
yep.
mean, we could see all kinds of stuff, slated to come out around award season get bumped big time. So this might be the
Now,
first domino to fall.
now I'm actually kind of worried about Killers of the Flower Moon getting pushed,
Wouldn't be surprised.
especially with
Wouldn't be
Scorsese.
surprised.
He seems like a guy that would stand up for the writers
Mm-hmm.
and push it back. That's actually interesting. I'm really hoping these strikes get over with and a deal gets made so that this does not continue to happen and we can get more of these great movies coming out. But at the same time, obviously they deserve their pay, being paid what they're worth.
Correct.
But yeah, I mean, this is a big one. I feel like I'm interested to see how the rest of the 2023 slate goes now.
Yeah, it could really change the landscape real quick.
Yeah, no kidding. So then we'll go right into the next section, which is going to be, of course, our last section. We are still continuing, in case you think we forgot, the best, well, not best, but the must-see movies of a decade. We've done the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s. We are not wrapping up because we are going to do the very short list of 2020 movies next week, but we're doing
Oh,
2010
nice.
movies this week. List is divisive, I would say. There are some good ones on there, but there
Okay.
definitely are some that I would not agree with that might even surprise you. As always, Reese has not seen this list, so
Nope.
this is going to be genuine reactions from him. And then at the end, we will do our own kind of list.
Yep.
But starting off at number 10, I was surprised by this. 2017's Coco.
Wow.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Coco. So Coco was playing at the movie theater I worked at. In high school, I worked at a 2-screen movie theater, and so I was around Coco a lot. I listened to Coco a lot of times. I've never sat through the whole thing, seen pieces of it. Looks incredible. I'm a little just surprised off the bat that would make the list. I wouldn't have necessarily thought of that immediately. My one fun note on that was in front of Coco, they had a short film, like a Frozen short film that was like 20
Okay.
some minutes long. And you had to play it in front of Coco, and parents would come out just so mad. Well, first I thought they were in the wrong movie. I'm like, no, this is here. And then they get so mad. They're like, well, can you turn it off? They're like, we brought our little kids here. They can't sit that long. This movie's already Coco's kind of long already. And now you're making me watch this 20-minute Frozen thing. Yeah, it was a disaster. So
Bold choice. I mean, I can't think of any other like animated movies that would beat Coco. I know it did very well when it came out. So I don't know what other animated movie would beat it.
would be yeah. Well, didn't Frozen come out in the 2010s? Like I
I'm
would
pretty
think
sure.
that. Yeah, I think it was like 2013, right? Like I would just assume if you're going to put a Disney situation on there that would make the list. I haven't seen Frozen either, so I can't speak to which movie's better. Also, like, wasn't Inside Out? Didn't that come out around the same time?
I think so.
Inside Out was like 2015, I believe, right? And like
both of those.
that's like pretty well regarded. So I think people in my head at least hold Inside Out to a higher standard than Coco. I could be wrong about that. I know people love Coco also, but I would have kind of guessed Inside Out would have edged it out. But let's move on. Instead of talking about a movie that I haven't seen.
Interesting. Next up, now, last week, this movie's predecessor topped my list. I don't know if I can agree with this movie being on the list because this is 2012's The Dark Knight Rises.
Interesting.
I love the Batman trilogy. The Dark Knight is my number one must-see movie from the 2000s. I definitely think The Dark Knight Rises is worse. I don't agree with all the people that say that it kind of completely fell flat for them because it didn't live up to The Dark Knight. I don't think that's what they were trying to do. I think the story is the messiest of the trilogy, and I don't think it is a masterpiece. I don't think I'd put it on the top 10 of the 2010s, though.
Yeah, I don't know if it would crack the top 10 superhero movies of the 2010s.
No.
That might be a little exaggeratory, but yeah, it's just like when I think, top 2010 movies, I don't think like, oh, let's make sure we get that third part of a trilogy that everyone kind of regarded as easily the weakest entry. But sure.
Number 8, we are staying on the superhero genre, and this is actually an animated superhero movie, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Sure. I think that deserves to be on there.
I would say it deserves to be on there more than Coco as well. It's interesting that it's this low. I know it's kind of regarded as the best Spider-Man movie now.
It's kind of regarded as like the best, like one of the best superhero movies ever, right? It's kind of like that, The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
What else do you put up there? Like the first Iron Man, I guess. Like as far as just how iconic it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting that it's that low. I would have guessed I could have seen that in the top 4.
Really? Okay. Well,
I wouldn't have been surprised.
Number 7, I definitely can't agree with this. I know it had cultural impact. I know it made a shit ton of money, but in my opinion, Avengers: Infinity War does not deserve to be on this list.
And I was actually made a list this time. And I actually almost for half a second considered putting that on my list just because of how culturally significant it was and like how you want to interpret the list. Like, must see movies from the 2010s. Like that probably is, just unique cinematic experiences to happen ever. Yeah. And so you can definitely make an argument for it to be on the list if you look at it through that lens.
See, I think I'm in the very small minority that says that Endgame is better than Infinity War.
I've only seen them both. I think I've only seen them both once. And I thought Endgame was really fun. I thought Endgame was a blast. Infinity War was just like that big event, right? It was just like hype up. Like again, like I wasn't even that into superhero movies at that time, but I remember being excited for that just because it was like this has never happened before. Like this is cool. So
Oh yeah. No,
sure,
I
I
agree. It
understand.
has
But yeah, I
huge cultural impact. But listen, I don't love Marvel movies. I do think the Avengers: Infinity War and Endgame are pretty well done. But just in my opinion, I think I'd put Endgame over this. So I was kind of shocked. I mean, I guess I'm not kind of shocked because I know that it is a minority that thinks that Endgame is better. But that's just how I am.
mm.
Number 6, though, I love being on this list, and it is Django Unchained.
Ooh, I love that. I think that's a
Yes,
great pick.
I think it very well deserves to be on this list. I would argue it is a little too low.
Yeah, it could be. And that was one that I had in my head. I was really toying with whenever I was making my list. I love Django Unchained. It might be one of my favorite Tarantino's. Like I don't have a list off the top of my head, but I would say it's if it's not in the top three, it's super close. So
Yeah, I would agree.
might be top three.
We'll have to see. I think it might have a spot on my list. Not to spoiler alert it, but number 5, a
Tease.
movie I've never seen, The Intouchables.
The Intouchables, huh? I haven't seen it
Yeah,
either.
it is a French feature, apparently very good. I have not seen it though.
Yeah, I'm like familiar with it, but I haven't seen it, and like don't know anybody who loves it. Like I know people who were like thought it was pretty okay, so
Okay.
I'm kind of surprised that that's on here, especially this high.
Oh, and it was. Oh, this is interesting. It had an English remake called The Upside with Kevin Hart and Bryan Cranston.
What? Oh yeah, I'm looking at that now.
Yeah,
Oh
I've seen The Upside. I don't really remember anything about it. I don't think The Upside was great, so I'm guessing the adaptation didn't nail it like the original.
no, yeah, I'm looking at them back to back. The Untouchables definitely seems to be have a much better response than
Yeah,
the Upside, but interesting.
yeah. Number 4, a movie that I absolutely love, and I'm assuming you're gonna love this as well, being a music guy. But Whiplash on the list.
Sure. Yeah, I like Whiplash a lot. I can't like a movie that I like don't quite connect to as much as everybody else, but still like I think it's very very good. Like I
Okay.
really do love Whiplash, but like it wasn't like my freaking jam whenever I
Okay.
watched it. But I definitely still recommend Whiplash a lot. Yeah, no, I think Whiplash for sure. You can make a case that it deserves to be on the list without a doubt.
Oh yeah, performances from J.K. Simmons alone would put it on this list. I feel.
Yes, for sure. I mean, like, and I say that like I'm like Whiplash to me is like an 8 out of 10. It seems like it's a 10 out of 10 to everybody else. So I'm not trying to not definitely not a Whiplash hater.
Okay, I'm glad to hear it. And then coming in at number 3, this one is going to be, I think, way too low. Even at number 3, you won't be shocked. It is my number 1 on my list. It's going to be Parasite.
Mm-hmm. Of
The
course,
just the fact that it is at 3, I think, is a disgrace. I think it is probably as close to a perfect movie as you can get in my mind. I'm so glad it won
it's
the
a good
Oscar.
one.
And yeah, I think 3 is just too low for it.
Fair point. You can say that. I think it's. I don't know if it still is. At one point, it was the most popular movie on Letterboxd, which is pretty remarkable for a foreign film to be.
Yeah,
Yeah, it still is the most popular movie on Letterboxd, which is pretty amazing. Um, most
yeah.
logged movie ever, right above almost a billion or a million logs above the next highest, which is Everything Everywhere
Wow.
All at Once, which is crazy that that's number 2.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that that many people saw it, especially because like the word of mouth of this when it came out, people
Just
saying it was
carried
so
and
good.
carried.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then it just everybody seemed to have seen it after that. And then going into the number 2 spot. Now, this is a movie from a director that I very much enjoy, but I don't think this should be number 2, and
Okay.
that is going to be Interstellar.
I wondered if that was gonna make it on here. Yeah.
I think it is great, and I would probably put it on my list down around 10, but I
Sure.
think 2 is way too high in my opinion.
Yeah, it's not a very exciting pick there too. Like it just
No.
isn't.
Number 1, on the other hand, is an
Mm.
exciting pick, and I know that you are going to heavily disagree with this. We are running it back to Christopher Nolan because number 1 is Inception.
Sure, and I think that's I get that. That's fine.
Yeah, I would definitely put it on my list. It would not be number 1 though. But let's go through our list really quick. Unfortunately for me, I could not put these in a real order. So it is going to be similar to, I think, 2 weeks ago. These are just the top 10 movies. Most of
Yep.
them are in any order, interchangeable. Parasite is at one. I don't think anything beats Parasite from the
Hmm.
2010s. So that is a clear number one for me. First of all, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood's got to be on here, and so does Django. I'm going two Quentin Tarantino's. I would definitely put Once Upon a Time in Hollywood ahead of Django. I think it is the better movie, but I can see why it's on here. I'm also doubling down. I'd put Interstellar and Inception on here, but probably Interstellar very low. Inception probably high, but definitely not up at one or two. And then that's where I leave the list, because then we got to go get some other movies. One movie we're going to have to put on this list that we have covered, Mission Impossible Fallout. My favorite action movie of
Ooh,
the
yeah.
2010s. Almost a perfect movie, in my opinion. Got to be on there.
I
Next
think
up,
that's a good pick.
underrated movie, 2014. Jake Gyllenhaal's best performance, Nightcrawler. Has to go on the list for me.
Mm.
Love
Mm.
that movie when it came out. I've watched it so many times. It'd be a sin to not put it on my list. Then I also have to grab my absolute, I don't know if I can say favorite, but The Social Network. I think
Mhm.
Zodiac is better, but Zodiac came out in the 2000s. So I'm going to definitely have to put The Social Network on there. But it would probably be maybe a little closer to the bottom, but definitely deserves to be on there.
I
Next
was going to
movie,
make a note about that. I was going to say I could not believe that the first list didn't have either Social Network or Zodiac on there, and
yes.
just by the picks that this list seems to usually make, it seems like the Social Network would have slotted in there. I would pick Zodiac over the Social Network probably, but I'm just surprised that neither of them made it on. Would
I
have
know.
really thought Social Network would have slotted in there.
Yeah. Now I'm grabbing a movie. I'm interested to hear what you say on this one. But Blade Runner 2049 is in there for me.
Sure, yeah, I think that's a totally great pick. There's
Yeah.
nothing, yeah,
It's a slow burn, but it's one of the
that was a huge
better,
movie.
I would say even best slow burns out there. If I were to absolutely pick one. And then my final pick for my top 10, I've got to go back to Quentin Tarantino and put The Hateful Eight on there. I think it is the most
Mm.
underrated of his movies. I absolutely love that film. A lot of movies on that list have the same director, but that is because, God, Christopher Nolan and Quentin Tarantino know how to make a movie.
Yeah, completely. I would disagree and say that Jackie Brown and Death Proof are his most underrated movies, but I
Okay.
love Hateful Eight. That
Yes.
was I saw that for the first time like a month or two ago, and yeah, that's easily in the top echelon of his films for me. So
Yeah. So let's hear your list then.
okay, so I actually took the time and made the list, so I'm not going to be jumping around this whole time trying to
Love
pick
to hear
stuff.
it.
No particular order, but I do have Parasite on my list as well. So
Okay.
that's the only overlap I think in either of the lists. Like everything else is a different pick. Okay. Parasite makes the list, obviously. And then I'm going to go Get Out, Jordan Peele.
Okay. I like that.
I think has to be on there. Really kind of started a whole new wave in horror filmmaking.
Yep.
Was super notable. Get Out easily makes my list. Then I have a couple horrors on here. I have A Quiet Place, John Krasinski.
Yep.
Might be a little bit of a out of left field a little bit. Love A Quiet Place. That was one of those movies where it was like an event there for a little bit to go see that
Yeah.
in theaters. And then, you would see people like bring snacks in and they would start eating snacks at the beginning and that theaters would be so quiet. And then you could tell like,
Yes.
everyone stopped eating their popcorn and snacks because it would be so loud in there because the movie was just so quiet. Like that was just such an event, such a moment when that movie was out. Really love whenever that kind of thing happens. So A Quiet Place makes it on my list. The other horror movie I have on here, Creep by Patrick Bryce and Mark Duplass. Love this movie, one of my favorite horror movies of all time.
Interesting.
I think it's incredible. Probably what I would say is the best found footage horror movie ever.
Okay.
Probably the movie that's like actually scared me the most. Like I've
Interesting.
like I watch a lot of horror movies, kind of desensitized to it at this point. But watching that movie, and there was times when I was freaked the frick out. And I have shown this movie to so many people. So love Creep by Patrick Bryce. Go check that out. Okay, moving on. The Florida Project, Sean Baker.
Yep.
Probably my favorite movie of all time. Has to be on the list. Just incredible. That's like my Grand Budapest, I think,
Okay.
right? Like whenever I say my favorite aesthetic of movie is like some girl running around some train tracks and then goes into a dump, that's a lot of what this movie is, but this movie's aesthetic is off the charts too. So
Yep.
so the aesthetic for the Florida Project and the filmmaking there is the equivalent to what everyone else's Grand Budapest is. I think
Yeah.
that's the tie-in there. Okay.
I knew that that was going to be on your list because I remember you asking me if I had seen that book when you were doing your recommendations,
Yep.
and I have, and I could tell that was going to at least be on the list.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I love all of Sean Baker's films. Like I could have been putting all of them on these, but I was like, that's the one that for sure makes it on. Okay, now where should I go next? I'm trying to kind of put everything in some spots here. Spring Breakers by Harmony Korine. I'm gonna put on the list just because it is like the most early 2010s movie out there, and it's super divisive. Love hearing arguments from both sides, but just the feel of that movie, and when it opens up with Skrillex, and you just have the spring break stuff going on, and then Selena Gomez is in it for a little bit, and just God, I love how divisive it is. Like that is like the most early 2010s movie out there, and obviously it was the first A24 film that got put out, and then that obviously ushered in a whole new wave of films being seen. Everyone loves A24 now, so say what you will about that. But
I love A24.
So Spring Breakers gets a spot on my list as a must-see 2010 film. Now, those are my top 6, or those are 6 of my picks. And then my last 4 are all documentaries, all nonfiction. I think the 2010s were an incredible time for nonfiction filmmaking. There's some really inventive stuff going on. And so really quick, I'll run through these. Camera Person by Kirsten Johnson. Kirsten Johnson's a cinematographer who works in nonfiction filmmaking. And Camera Person is a film she made through all this archival footage she had over years and years of her career and put all this stuff together and made this really incredible portrait of what it means to be behind the camera, be on surrounding the camera and what's in front of the camera, the relationship between documentary subject and documentary filmmaker. It is really, really great stuff. Love Camera Person. My next one is the most radical film maybe ever made, Leviathan by Lucien Chastain-Taylor and Verena Paravel. This movie rocks. Adam, I would love for you to watch this movie and come back and give a report on it.
Okay.
What
is it? It's Leviathan?
It's called Leviathan, yeah. If you look it up, there's a movie that'll probably come up from 2014, and it's not that one. This is one that came out in 2012.
Okay.
And it is, the story goes, and this is all kind of like hearsay and like folklore. The story goes, it's about like this fishing vessel, right? The whole documentary is about this fishing vessel. And story goes that like all of their quote unquote real cameras fell off the boat and got washed out to sea. And so they just took all these GoPros and like strung them up in really weird spots and made this documentary. It's basically 90 minutes of the most just like abstract, cutting filmmaking ever. This really weird version of direct cinema. And like the way I described it is like by like 35 minutes in, like you feel like you're like an organ. Like it is the craziest movie ever.
What?
It's not for everyone. People fall asleep during this movie. I've seen it. I've been lucky enough to see it in a theater one time, and it was the most like just visceral experience of my life. So you'll love it or you'll hate it. Maybe you should get high and watch it. Maybe you shouldn't. But Leviathan is a special movie. Okay.
Interesting.
Quickly moving on. My last 2, Hale County This Evening by Ramel Ross is just an incredible portrait of Hale County, and some like that movie is like if a scrapbook was a movie, and so much more. Like again, it goes into filmmaker relationship with participant, but from a much more observatory position in the way, I don't know, I could talk for a million years about this, but that movie's on there. Then KD with an I by Robert Greene is on my list as well. So that's my top 10. A very
Interesting.
Reese, very Reese top 10. Yes.
I was not expecting documentaries on there.
Yeah, I'm a big documentary guy, and there's a lot of cool stuff that happened in the 2010s. So all those are going to hit. My honorable mention, and I was going to kind of touch on this whenever you said Blade Runner. Like, I almost put Force Awakens on my list just because of how big of a moment that was, and now how much of a moment the whole Legacy sequel thing is. I think Star Wars is the most notable of those, so I think you could actually have that on there too if you wanted to. So that's my list.
Interesting list. I was not expecting the documentaries, but there were some movies on that list I actually knew, which I was surprised.
Cool.
As always, though, as we are wrapping up here, it is my final week to select a movie that we'll be reviewing next week. Now, I thought about this long and hard. I went through a couple different picks of what it was going to be, and then yesterday during National Cinema Day, between my movies, I went and got this movie on Blu-ray. It is a 35th year anniversary or 30th year anniversary, I think. So we're going to be taking a look at 1980s Raging Bull. Martin Scorsese, Robert De Niro, absolute classic. Excited to hear what you say on it. So excited to see this. Actually loved, I'm going to send you a picture of this. The box it came with a bunch of old photographs from behind the scenes of when this movie was being made. I actually want to get some of them framed because they are very good. So excited to cover that next week.
I can't wait. This is a great pick. I'm very excited to see it.
Love to hear it. And as always, guys, if you tuned into this video and enjoyed what you saw, please consider leaving a like. You guys' support means so much to me, and I hopefully Reese as well as we are going through these. If you want to add to any of these discussions, consider leaving a comment down below. And of course, if you want to stay up to date with our content, please consider subscribing to the channel. And we will see you next week.
Peace.